Okay, it's now 3:30. I will call to order the meeting of the Rockford Transit District Board of Trustees, number 9, Tuesday, February 2024. First order of business, approval of minutes from January 22nd, 2024. So moved. A second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries. Business, first off, executive director for something I'd like to mention. First off, February 17th, for mankind's 50th anniversary. In state district acts and council in Rock, he passed and approved the ordinance which created this corporation known as Transit. As such, in this year, we'll be recognizing those employees for celebrating the anniversary of the town in the month of May. Thank the following employees for the pursuit of dedicated service to the community. Just for coming one more day. There was Charles Mann, 17 years in fixed rod operator, transit operator. Brent Dre is 2 years as transit coordinator, and Zach with 3 years operator. 1 year. Tricia Oleg, 5 years as paratransit operator. Just before 3 years. Continuing on a couple small updates on the state level. Within file, but it is being reviewed. Business and government potential coming up as the pending flip associated with state revenues. Ultimately, financial fixes and forms off. You have to talk about this. Revenues. It's been on the effort. The other thing I'll mention on the federal level, and kind of stuff in the resolution months ago, January. From that, it goes to March 1st. Hopefully, we hear something that discusses the 20 appropriation. Current issues with the funding we have is discretionary. Our whole big account is pretty much kind of along the lines of I just want to bring something towards attention that's been involvement within the industry relative to supply issues and documents. It may not be a little bit of test of the second 11 2 currently working buses. States. One of them is our seeing that as an issue after the task force, the support manufacturers and procedures and ways and methods in which the industry support that issue. Understand why. across the stores. So task force was developed. One of the things that was really strong out from that was trying to share some of this that manufacturers have. Have to be highest things, advanced things. Buy a vehicle to the point where you go out and get a bid and manufacturer bids on it to the point where it actually is being produced and delivered, and the individual paying on that delivery, that can be the cost. Manufacturers challenge with the burden and risk associated with something like cost. Things change, that's what you're seeing. Really so the task force came up with a number of recommendations of transit administration. Supporting those discussion, administration of the challenges associated with infrastructure, advance mission, and so forth, to make sure that everyone understands the current plan is happening. So as we apply future funding for the program, we will be looking to do for those contracts during the course of vehicle procurement. Understand this associated with that. Nice one. We're bringing that to your attention. One of the things that the industry is asking to make sure that this policy climate I'll share that with you, and we appreciate any future questions. Finally, I was going to mention in line with that, FTA issued no quote, no emissions and facilities here February 8th. In line with applications. In that place calendar year, this time of and we're really looking at this on this site. Certainly with the facility project, getting on the street and bag how much state cover supplement. For the phase three. Don't forget the timings of that, whether that's something. Okay. All right, so with that, on to the main part of the agenda. Let's talk about finance. We'll start off with payment of bills. First, the AGL services for December 31st, 2015. Okay, and then question on that, we can move on to the approval of accounts payable. And so, in January, we have invoices totaling $5,888,000. Question on the needs of that 588,000. I'm sorry, that's 5 million. Oh, 588,000. A little different there. A little different. I'll second. Discussion. All the industry started saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right. With that, we'll move on to item B, the 2023 pension evaluation report. Schwab Expert Search is here to go.
Go ahead. Thank you very much. Vice Chairman, Secretary Treasurer, and others in attendance, thanks very much for having me. It's great to see you all again. I'm going to update you on the status, the funded status of the plans, and also provide the cash contribution recommendation for the plan year. So I'm going to give you some detail of the background first, though, to see if that's the amount that makes sense and is appropriate for you this year. Now, since we met last February, the pensions were funded with last year's recommended and approved amount of 1.65 million. And the benefits for all the participants were updated to reflect additional accruals as of 7/1/2023. Annual benefit statements were produced, and Susan reviewed them and okayed them. They were sent out to participants. The accounting valuations were also completed, and Mike and Ron reviewed those, and the auditors used them in your financial statements at 6/30/2023. So today, we're going to kick off the 2024 process. Of course, when I go through, ask any questions, stop me with any commentary whenever you want, okay? So if you want to turn to stamped page 1, we're going to start with the accounting. And the Government Accounting Standard Board for the pension plans, they mandate how I need to do the valuations. So each year I do valuations for both cash funding amounts and the accounting valuations. Now, as I said, GASB mandates the procedures that I use for the accounting. And so the numbers are a little bit different than the funding because they're kind of hands off when it comes to the cash funding of pension plan. So that's based on the policy that we develop, and the GASB doesn't really get into that. However, the accounting for the fiscal year end, so at 6/30/2023, and the plan year funding for the next fiscal year, so at 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2024, they're based on the same. Well, first of all, they're on the same date. Effectively, they're based on the same assets and they have the same participants. So it makes sense to just present the both together. They're pretty close in liability, but you'll see a bit of a difference. So also, talking about the accounting gives me an opportunity to talk about the OPEB, or the post-retirement health care, which is basically just accounting is performed for that, because there are assets attached to that. However, they're not legally attached to the plan. So basically, you can use them for other areas if you wish. So that is performed using the discount rate equal to municipal bond rate, right? And so since it's not effectively funded, we don't use the rate of return. Okay, so we're going to turn to page 2. Now, there's more detail in the summary of the 6/30/2003 accounting results. It's in the appendix for your reference. But there's a table here on this page that shows the pension plan funded status, and it increased, which is good news from the prior year. Now, the funded status, you can look there in the chart. It's kind of volatile over time, and it's primarily due to the actual expected return through the year versus what we expect, right? So the difference there kind of causes volatility in the funded status. Now, in years that returns are greater than what we expect, which 6.5% is our long-term assumed investment return rate. Years that we earn more, the annual cash contribution and the funding status is greater. The contribution, the recommended contribution is lower, and the funded status is usually greater, vice versa. All right. So that's kind of the assets, how the assets move through time. Now, the liabilities, we continue to monitor the demographic assumptions used to generate those liabilities. So, for example, mortality rates, retirement rates, termination rates. We make sure those are in line so the liabilities are properly valued. Now, every year, there typically is an increase at this point of the plans, meaning frozen plans, frozen participants. But at this point in the lifetime of the plans, you usually have increase in liabilities year to year as people earn more benefits every year for additional year of service, and also as they age, they get 1 year closer to retirement, so it's discounted 1 year less. Right, so that increases the liability some. Now, to offsetting that a little bit is we exclude the payments that were made to retirees through the year. because they were paid those benefits. It shouldn't be in the liability anymore. So there's a little bit of offset to the additional accrual increases. But basically, that overall, that increase is typically it's covered by the normal cost, which is a major part of the recommended cash contribution. Okay. Now, the current funded status is on an accounting basis. You can see here it's just under 84%, which is strong compared to others in the state and local pension market. For example, Illinois is 55% funded. It's one of the worst in the country, by the way. But then broadly over the country, the state and local plans are usually between 75 and 80% funded currently. So you're doing pretty well, comparatively speaking. Now the 2000, let's talk about the 6/30/2024 funded status. So your next accounting valuation will depend. I guess the funding status will depend on the cash contributions we talked about today, what you put in, and then what are obviously the returns on those trust monies. Okay. Now the OPEB, the post-retirement health care, it has a liability of $2.87 million at 6/30/2023. So it's a lot smaller. And it's based on the municipal bond rate, as I discussed. And the asset set aside is about the same as the liability, but like I said, it's not legally attached to the OPEB, so we don't use that for accounting purposes for the OPEB. All right. Now the 6/30/2024 liability for the OPEB will be based on the bond rate at that time. It will be based on the change in the medical premiums. And it also be based on participant levels at that time. Now you can, like I said, it's a frozen plan, and we'll see later on. It only had 24 retirees left at the end of last fiscal year. Okay, so if we want to move on to the pension funding on page 3, I have again a more detailed summary is in the appendix for reference, but I have a chart here which is it's similar. It's the 4-year snapshot. And in fact, the same kind of comments apply here as we just talked about for the accounting section. The asset values and returns are the same as we just looked at. The present value of accrued benefits or the liabilities are they show the same increasing pattern. However, like I said, they're valued under slightly different actual methods. So there's the liabilities are a bit lower than they are for the accounting. So it makes the funded percentage a little bit higher than the accounting funded percentage, but again, the story's the same. So RMTD has historically targeted the normal cost as a minimum cash contribution, and the normal cost, what does that mean? Well, it means that it covers all the accruals for the year for current active participants, and also covers a portion of the unfunded status for prior accruals. So we have accrued benefits for all the participants, and it's not fully funded, but it's so we pay a little bit of that every year. So that's the normal cost there. Now the annual normal costs have been between 1.04 and 1.66 million over the last decade. Now the annual cash contributions over that same time period have been between 1.4 and 1.66 million. So the 2023/24 plan year normal costs, and what I'm recommending as a cash contribution this year is 1.5 million. So it's in that same range. It's a bit lower because of the asset returns were higher than we expected. Right? So we earned a 9.1 here. You can see in the chart versus what we expect, which is 6.5. Now it would have been even lower than the 1.5 million. However, I've incorporated some additional liability due to the ATU contractual salary increases. So that increased the liability a little bit there. Now, if you want to turn to page 4, this is a graph here. Now the table below shows some normal costs. It shows the cash contributions that were made for the year. It shows returns, both assumed and actual, over the last 5 years. Now, the normal cost broadly reflects the prior contribution asset levels, meaning the normal cost is generally lower following years of higher cash contributions and higher returns. and vice versa. Okay. Now the last column shows the funded percentage, both on a current service basis. So basically all the service has been rendered just to date. That's the accrued liability, and also the projected service basis. So the PVFB stands for present value future benefits. That includes basically all service. So somebody that's say mid-career, what I do is I say, okay, well, they have 20 years, they're going to work another 20 years. So his benefit on 40, his or her benefit on 40 years of service is the PVFB. And so that's why there's two different percentages there. Now, the bottom of this chart, what I did here is I put just projected funded statuses as of the end of this fiscal year. So it's 6/30/2024, assuming the 1.5 million cash contribution. So what I've done, if I've used the January 23rd, 2024, when I put this slide deck together, that's the latest asset value I had. I used that and I projected it through the end of the fiscal year, end of 6/30/2024, using 6.5, 0, and negative 6.5 percentages. So from the end of January through the end of fiscal year. And so you can see the projected percentages at the end of them, and they're, it's, even if we get your assets have done very well through January 23rd. And so even if we don't earn any more income to the end of fiscal year, our projected funded percentages are still higher than they are at the end of last fiscal year. So that's good news. Okay. All right. So just real quickly, I want to walk through the appendix here, starting on stamped page 5. And really, this is just the first one. This is the accounting results here, and it basically the top portion just takes the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It's just a reconciliation, and on the right there, under the commentary section, you can see it just describes the increases and decreases of the liability. So the change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, that's kind of what happened. And then you can see in the middle, you have the head count, you have your actives, terminated vesteds, and retirees receiving payments. And the bottom is the pension expense. Now, the pension expense is not cash. It's not the amount that you have to contribute. It's not too far off, actually, the normal cost, but that's just by happenstance. It's an expense that's completely calculated separately with different components, but it's what goes on your financial statements. Okay. The next page is for the post-employment healthcare, or the OPEB. Again, it's the beginning of the year to the end of the year. You can see that we just have very few additional accruals because we only have a couple of active participants left that are eligible for this plan in retirement. Have passage time, some changes in premiums, etc. So essentially, this plan is, you can see in the middle, it has 24 at 6/30/2023, had 24 remaining participants. So this really is a plan that over the medium term anyway, it's kind of a battle between how much premiums increase and mortality, right? So if mortality rates are high and premiums don't increase that much, well, you're going to get lower liability, which I'll get to in a second, and vice versa. So it's kind of a battle between how much healthcare goes up and how long people survive. The main driver besides the premium change is the interest rates, because this is based on basically the market rates. It's municipal bond rate, but as you know, we were at low rates for a long time, right? Rates were very low. Well, then inflation comes up, and it spiked higher than it had in 20 years, they say. And so rates in general went up. Now that doesn't necessarily directly affect the municipal bond market, but if the rate trends are high, then so the municipal bond rates too. They usually follow. And also what the Fed does, they raise rates, it's going to impact the municipal bond at the end of the day. So last year, at the end of last fiscal year, we're at 4.13, and municipal bond rates are similar. They're in the same ballpark today, but people are projecting, the markets are projecting, 3 or 4 rate cuts by the end of the year. So if that happens, again, municipal bond rates will follow that trend. So I expect that we'll be at a lower rate, which drives up liabilities. Lower the rate, higher the liabilities. So we'll see where we're at 6/30/2024. Okay, the next page 7 is we're on the funding discussion here, and I have my favorite pie chart there. And so essentially, this a lot of numbers here, but essentially the pie is the present value of future benefits. So basically, all the benefits that are going to be earned by all the participants based on current and future service until retirement is represented by that circle, the PVFP. And then the PVAB is what's been accrued so thus far based on just past service. And then the pieces that make up the difference are the normal costs, and that's what we're talking about today. So the piece that I recommend you pay for this year is equal to $1.5 million. Okay, and so I expect that we'll have to that normal costs will be have to make contributions to the plan for probably another at least 12 years to close that gap up. And then the amount of the normal cost or the annual contribution will fluctuate based on basically how the market does. Right. So if your assets continue to do good, the normal cost will hopefully stay, level for another 10, 12 years. But we'll just have to see, because it may get volatile too because they are frozen plans as well. So as the participants decrease, you'll get a lot of volatility as well. Okay. And then the last page there is just a breakdown of the 3 pension plans. The sum is the 1.5 million, and it's made up of the ATU, IBU, and admin. So that's what I had prepared. So if you have any questions or commentary, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with the recommendation. I'm agreeing with the recommendation of million. John, we're asking for motion. I'd like to even, we budgeted them. And a little bit more. Cover the board. I'm comfortable with either 1,550,000 or 1,500,000. How many installments? And just do we'll do one in the next week, and then of course, in the past we've always tried to do it before fiscal year end, but if we have some payment subsidies, if it stays on Illinois, might trigger into August, maybe even in September. Installment. Second. Any further discussion? Thanks again.
Yeah, you bet.
All the papers things have the same one. Aye. Action carries. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Time and congratulations. Brad, I liked your table, number 4, page 4 of that table.
Yeah.
Is that a favorite?
Oh, that
That scenario on it. What
Yeah.
Instead of the rest of the year. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on. Steve, or item D now, review fiscal year 2025 operations. So, Ron, Rob, why don't you walk us through? Okay, that budget summary, you can see that with the fixed route, with the hours, 111,194 hours. The ridership, we kind of based the ridership for fixed route to be what
what we've seen in the last 6 months, and it was a little bit above the previous year budget, and we felt comfortable that we could, on a conservative basis, budget for the same amount of ridership. On the demand response, we also looked at it and budgeted 75,000 hours, which is, again, similar to last year. I think, we budgeted 116,000 rides, last year. We kind of, were below that, so I think we made it more like the, about 100 and, what is it this year, Mike? 117, yeah, I saw that, this for your ridership.
Well, if we.
Yeah,
July,
okay,
number
there you go, yep, yep, yep. And included in that, I think you probably read in there that, we budgeted, so, we think that the budget can include some, small micro, transit, pilot within the fiscal year.
Long.
Yeah, I should also add that, with the, the safety to the end, but with the, we doing good, a good job of everybody taking on the budget, getting the managers involved and talking about the different. Managers really know, what the budget is for next year, and, it, it, it'll only be a good tool for everybody if they know it's really well done. The fringe benefits, you can see that, sorry, in wages, you can see that, we budgeted a 3.25% increase in all the different areas. And, we budgeted some additional help with 179 employees, or we got 155 full-time, 24 part-time, and, projected about a 10.7% increase in that area. A lot of that has to do with the HEU and negotiations were this year with the, and the fringe benefit side, you can see that the increase is about 6.7%. We tried to, we talked to Brett and got the pension in there, and along with there were some changes with the 457 plan that have been approved to enhance that according to the negotiations and everything too. So those increases are additions are in there, and then projected in the 6.7% increase. You know, the big drivers in there is the pension and you know, the workers' comp. The services projected to increase about 22.4%, 22.4% to $1,980,600, and you can see that 207,000 of that is additional increase in security. You see, if you take a look at that security number for a year, it's $597,000. If you look at technology, to take a look at that from about 12 years ago, but in today's world, we've got 12 years ago, we probably didn't have East Side Transit. We've got that area of demand along with this. And we have the responsibility to keep our clientele. Material and supplies, up 2%. The reason that probably isn't going up, any more than 2% is, our stock, our capital, buses are, we've done a good job of giving them the supplies, parts and stuff. That's a good thing. And also with material and supplies, it's fuel costs and reports and fuel costs. We're not seeing that the fuel costs will be great. And it's also a little bit with the electric costs. Not major factor yet, but we do have 6 electric buses. That energy would be in the utilities expense. I think we figured out to be about $55,000. For potential expenses of additional utility expenses. Admin services. Including this next year's budget to non-recurring expenses. The other is, expenses. Additional services, under services. So, meetings, changes to our providers. Sorry. That and you're talking about utilities. Yeah. And you'll see that the 4% increase in the utility area. Just a reminder that we did budgets, electrical costs for with the casualty and liability, I'm pretty happy to report that the increase is 6%. The insurance costs and stuff like that, to bring a budget with 6% and then there for casualty and liability. So it's a good thing to be in, and his people do a great job with working with the broker to try to assure that we economically for our insurance is there. The taxes of the vehicle and registrations, there's not too much going on there with the purchasing this year. Except on the paratransit side, there's going to be some paratransit vehicles that are being purchased in fiscal year. We put a minor amount in there for that. The purchase transportation is increasing almost 40%. That's got to do with the activity in comparison to the budget of last year. It's up about 40%. You can remember towards last year, with last year, Will County Council of Aging came and we had to revise what the trip rate charge was. And it's up to $30.81, and that's what it is now. And that's what they're projecting this year. That's what our agreement is right now. And that's what they're saying the next fiscal year is going to be. We gave them the opportunity to, review that and even come up with a different, rate charge. But they felt comfortable with the 3081. So really the driving factor of the increase besides with the 3081 is they've also got some, ridership, increases there in the number of trips.
So just in that, yeah, there's a substantial increase in ridership.
Yeah.
They're projecting, I mean, that's realized from that.
Almost 8,000.
But what a couple of those factors driving that is, and it's noted there, is that obviously with their decision to discontinue the number 24, that has an impact on rides. And as we list here, we're looking at an annualized ridership of about 2,300 on there. So those hypothetically shift to BCCA provided transportation and response. So they added those and to ensure that we're meeting transfer times and so forth. There'll be a little bit of change in service hours, span of service for them. They're reviewing some other opportunities there. So that's driving some of that ridership projection increase that they're proposing. So I think they're, you know, it's always good to be higher where you land, but this gives us a budget number which, you know, can capture those changes. So.
Yeah, with miscellaneous expenses, you can see it's increasing, the projected budget's increasing 7.7%. It's a relatively small number, about 454,000. So a $30,000 increase in that makes it look like it's a big number when it kind of really isn't. The 30,000, quite a bit of the 30,000 increases were due to some additional training that we'd like to have with our staff.
Part of that goes into professional development and or with our SOAPS software, the training modules that we provide to them with the various training opportunities with whether it's de-escalation training, customer service, or some of the other things that we've listed to the board, training report. We look to continue that and do more of that in the fiscal year, so we add that to the budget.
And then our debt service is basically the same as what it was last year at the $248,897. It's 1/12 of the lease that we have for the batteries for the electric vehicles. And that 248 covers both the interest payment along with the principal payment. So our total operating expenses are up 8.9%, 26,699,862 compared to 24,522,000. 24 years ago, we probably were under 12 million for a year. I didn't confirm that, but we've kind of grown over the 24 years that I've been here. And just thank you for the opportunity of being here for the 24 years. But as far as the revenue and subsidy, you can see what the breakdown is there. The major components of our subsidy again is on the federal side, and the majority is really on the IDOT side. We get 65% of eligible expenses, and we don't have very many eligible expenses except for the one area of SMTD. SMTD is not part of us, so I have to treat them as a ineligible expense, and they're about $1.7 million of the budget. But as far as other ineligible expenses, I'd say the largest one would be the lobbyist fee that we pay $6,000 or $6,500 a month. I think it's $6,000 a month, so 72,000 right there too. But those are the majority of the ineligible expenses that we have. So, and I just mentioned about the subsidies. 65% of it's mostly IDOT. The other 35% comes from either FTA that we use for operating to as a match, or it comes from the city of Rockford, which again, probably for the last 8-10 years is
basically been the same, except for the $24,000 that we get for the veterans and the students.
So just a real quick note on budget, revenue, elements. As noted in the summary, we are, being conservative with that projection, just going with what we project to see as the annualized total this year, as the total for next year. So, anything above and beyond that, fantastic, that reduces the other local match resources on the federal side or so forth. But just want to note that we try to do the revenue projection conservatively in line with where we intend to end up this year, and we did that both with fixed route and paratransit. So that was not. So then, as Ron was mentioning, with the subsidy portion, we went further and just broke it out in terms of the percentages. This year, where state and federal subsidies projected to account for 82.5% of our overall program. The federal subsidy for ADA security program agents and eligible operating expenses projected to increase 12.7% to 4.554738 in FY25. And then that subsidy will be allocated from the remaining ARPA CARES CRISA funds that we have, along with 5307 funds from the 2019 federal portion of funds. So that's the primary resource along with the state subsidies, and then the local subsidies, we outlined 17.5% of that comes from our municipal partners, the county of Boone County loves Park, Chesney Park, City of Rockford. So that was outlined then as well. The state line mass transit district subsidy will account for 7.1% of the overall cost. And just a reminder, they pay 100% of the cost, our costs, and then from those expenses, then they get their state subsidy from their side. So that's a little bit different in terms of how the others break down.
And then just remind the board that today is the first day of 30 days where the public has the opportunity to request a review or look at the budget. And 30 days from now, we'll have our
Public hearing.
public hearing, and then our big hearing, and then our board meeting. In the meantime, this a lot of other work that Paula does for the grant work that goes in the Black Cat, which is the Illinois Department of Transportation, where we put the money in or put the information in and able to get the advancements and reimbursements each month. We will be putting this in immediately, and it has to be to the state by March 31st.
April 1st.
April 1st.
Right. So we'll have it in. So any initial questions?
No, the budget is balanced, though.
Yes, yes.
Things match.
Just question under services, just clarity on the description around security services. Are we adding capacity for security? We kind of walk through like,
Yeah.
because of that increase, like what are we getting with that?
Right, so we actually increased coverage of the number of officers and the number of officers that we have, security agents that we have during our peak times. So starting earlier in the morning, we have operators reporting, continuing through when operators go home. Some of the folks that we start service 4:15 in the morning, they're reporting in 4 o'clock in the morning, and we have folks on property here until well after midnight, close to 1 a.m. That whole span as agents that are at the agents, but officers at the transfer center, and then doing perimeter coverage to ensure that our employees can get to and from their vehicles safely on a daily basis. And then coverage at the transfer center, we typically have 2 individuals working during our peak periods to cover both wings of the transfer center to ensure that we're responsive and patrolling those areas in our customer areas outside and inside. And then they're always available to respond to incidents on the street as necessary when matters arise. So that's at the downtown transfer center. We also have supplementary coverage at the east side transfer center. During off-peak period times, whenever the transfer center is open, or we open the transfer center whenever we operate service to the east side transfer center. So there's time periods at the beginning of the day and the end of the day where we have security coverage, covering and manning that facility when our customer service desk is closed. And one of the things that since Greyhound started operating to the East Side Transfer Center, they provide 2 trips a day in the morning around 8:30 and in the afternoon around 4:30. 4:35. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They provide coverage on weekends and holidays for us as well when that occurs. So really the increase has started when we talked to the board about this earlier this year when we increased coverage in the fall. And so this carries through then with those enhanced plan into next year. And on top of that, then per contract, we have a yearly contract wage increase for the officers associated with that. So that's what contributes to those cost increases that we see.
And the officers are armed too, right?
Yeah, we have a combination on them.
And just add a little, in doing the math, it's actually cheaper to have security out there. Many times we're not necessarily running service than it is to hire another person by the time you add the benefits in. So not to save us a little bit of money, actually.
They also have the resource of a canine unit as well, which they periodically bring downtown for sweeps. And it's an added layer that is obviously adds to our strategy. So that's Metro Security was the services.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring this back next month, and in the meantime, if there's any questions, comments, concerns, be sure to reach out to Ron or I, and we can do this. So thank you for your time with that. So then we'll move on to the next line item, budget or agenda item, sorry. So item E, approval of the unaudited financial statements for, we'll start with November. Any questions relative to that was in the packet?
No. I can.
I'll move that we approve the unaudited financial statements for November and December of 2023.
I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Both of those are approved. We'll move on then to the next item. We have the pension portfolio review for the period of February 13th and the pension investment statement for January 31st. Any questions on that? Benedetto and Associates, smoother report outlining.
6.82.
Yeah,
Your date's good, last quarter.
not the best, but
Still above expectations.
yes.
All right, no question with that.
No
We'll
question.
Move on to the next section. Operations report, fixed route, ridership stats for January and the demand response stats for January. Are there any questions on that? I'll just note real quickly again, as outlined, up 36.9%, January 37 year to date. One thing also just kind of a little breakdown in the report. Weekdays are up, weekdays, day and evening. Combination are up 37.1 compared to last year, and weekends, just looking at Saturdays and Sundays combined, are up 39.4% compared to last year. So as we've kind of talked about, weekends seem to be trending. So
All positive.
all positive.
Yeah.
Demand response, you see, we're kind of flat in terms of ridership changes there, other than BCCA all had a little bit bigger increase last night.
Yeah.
No further questions. We'll keep moving on. We'll get into E4, maintenance vehicles and facilities. First up, there's the report on the buses and paratransit vehicles for January. Are there any questions on that?
No, I haven't.
Moving along then, we'll get into maintenance facilities update report for February. Dan, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, not much has changed since our last meeting. Some good news, hopefully on the charge infrastructure. Charge Point was actually here today. We sent a couple people out, and I met with them and basically complained the whole time about how poorly they're handling the project. But they think in the next couple of weeks that they should have parts shipped out. They are doing some, what they call proactive maintenance. They've had some failures on some cooling systems on the units that we have. So they're gonna replace those ahead of time, and then we'll get the power links in, and we should be good to go here, get commissioned by hopefully the middle of next month. Which long awaited, paratransit van order, I'm heading out Monday for that build, so we will be getting a total of 14 new vans. Desperately needed, as we've retired about 5 or 6
Already, yeah.
already that we haven't been able to replace, so that will be a welcome gift to our paratransit folks.
I was gonna say, a note on that, George and his staff has done yeoman's work, phenomenal job on keeping us fully resourced on a daily basis. We've got a tight spare ratio on our paratransit fleet, and we'll prioritize that and ensure that we have vehicles available. So they've been working awfully hard down in maintenance to make sure that that happens and we get through this little hump. Dan, we anticipate those vehicles delivered and being operational in April at this point. So, well, once they get produced, they have to get processed and then get.
And we did go out for bid for these ourselves this time instead of going off the state contract because they'd canceled ours. And we just found out that they have just started awarding contracts now. So they're just ordering now, not getting them in now.
We're ahead.
We're a year ahead.
Where are you at?
Yeah.
We're a year ahead.
Oh,
Yes,
and had we not done that, we would be in a little bit of trouble.
yes. And actually the price we got was actually a little less than what the state got. So I'm proud of that as well.
Good news. So,
Yeah.
Dan, just want to touch on the bus order and timelines for that again.
Yeah, so we have 4 diesel hybrids that will go online tentatively April 29th. And that will replace our last 4 1300s. And then
No.
no, I'm sorry, 09.
09.
I'm sorry. All of our last 4 09s, then we'll have our 1300s, which Mike talked about earlier, that will hopefully be in the next, not this round, but the next round in 2025. So that's when they're eligible for replacement.
Oh.
Then I think Mike's gonna talk about the facility expansion project, so I'll let you take that.
Yeah, that,
Oh, yeah.
it's about as much as Dan has outlined here. We've got, building review in with, the city, currently, and the pre-bid concurrence, at IDOT for review. So we're sitting back, waiting on review, answering any questions that come up, but, really anticipating getting that back. In the meantime, we've been spending some time, with our A&E team, and our owners rep meeting with ComEd, and going over our needs there and our project plan, and ensure that they're being responsive and getting the equipment that we need from them ordered, and they're planning for that. So that's a big coordination item that we're ensuring happens in the meantime. So aside from that, not much else to report at this point. Just trying to keep everybody moving along and hopefully have an opportunity to get it out to bid within the next month.
I know I wasn't here for the last meeting, but the parking lot looks great.
Yeah.
It looks like it's full.
Yep,
Yeah, certainly
it's,
being,
it's worked out well for us.
certainly being utilized. That's a welcome addition. And
Yeah.
that's a nice addition to it. Well, not nice addition, but it's an improvement to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And shout out to the parking system,
President.
the president of the.
Self-proclaimed, by the way.
All right, another question. Move on to item D, approval of energy suppliers, so now included for your review. Dan, you want to go through this?
Sure. So our contract is up here sometime in April. So as you guys probably may remember, we work with Rockford Energy as our broker. So we solicited bids per kilowatt hour cost. So one of the things that we looked at, you scroll past the memo, you can see the actual bids. So there's really 2 different types of energy. It's just a regular, what they call mixed use energy, which is your nuclear, your coal, your ethanol, that type of energy. Or if you scroll towards the bottom of the second page, there's renewables, which is generally in this area, wind and solar. So you can see the pricing between those two. So for the mixed, the lowest bid was AEP, that was 0.05450 per kilowatt hour, with an estimated cost of $54,372.91 to RMTD. Bids for the renewable, the lowest was 0.05702 per kilowatt hour, with estimated cost of $56,887.03, based on estimated usage. So, based on the small difference between the renewable and the mixed use, we are recommending that we award to the lowest bidder on the renewable side, just to kind of keep, we're trying to be clean, we're trying to do all this good stuff, the battery electrics and the hybrids. It just makes sense to us that we also buy renewable energy, which we know is clean. So, so we're looking for approval to authorize the executive director to execute a contract with Shell Energies at the submitted rate of 0.05702 per kilowatt hour.
Just a quick note on that, and just, looking back above, our current provider is MC2 and rates 5.834. So at the end of the day, we're below what our current rate is if you would want that. So. just wanted to mention that.
I like that.
So moved.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on, then we got the claims history report for January 24. Any questions on that? Positive.
Positive numbers.
Down 8.5 for the year, so it's good. Good. There's nothing else on that. We'll get on to the marketing section, approval of advertising contracts.
Yeah, 2 contracts this month, along with the contract that was pre-approved because of timeline. So first contract is T-Mobile. They want to do 2 bus wraps for a year, starting in May, on May 1st. So yeah, excited about that one. That's, pretty national brand coming to wrap 2 of our buses. Is good exposure. So that's one. And then our other contract is a currency exchange here locally in Rockford. They want to do rail cards for 3 months, a total of 20 rail cards on our buses. So yeah, those 2 contracts.
And the thing with wraps, we mentioned before, we continue to wrap 2013s.
Yes.
That's our primary wrapping, then we'll start revisiting hybrid stuff. Okay.
Okay, now, let's see. You want to do them all together, or?
All together.
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we approve the 2 advertising contracts before us.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
One more note, this year we'll be a part of the Rockford Area Arts Awards. We're kind of like a partner with them. Their theme is connecting Rockford through the arts. So we'll be a big part of that kind of show and what they're doing with that. So we have a small portion at the beginning, just talking about Rockford Mass Transit District and how we connect individuals in the community. Along with that, will be mentioned throughout the program with our logo and just different verbal mentions as well. It was something that we felt was a good opportunity for us. We're here for the community, and we always want to extend that hand to the community through the different avenues of the community. So that's one thing we're going to be a part of. That is going down on March 8th. It's a Friday. They have given us plenty of seats, so if the board would like to come, please come out and show support and all that good stuff. I'll send you guys the times and things that go with that. But yeah, that's something else that we're kind of extending our arm to.
And that's really an outgrowth of our partnership with them and displaying those mosaic pieces in the transfer center. I should note that we have a plaque that's been affixed to the building down there that you can be part of their scan and art walk piece. And so just the artists and who contribute that piece. So we'll look to continue to grow and develop that partnership, having arts in the community, specifically on transit is something that's advantageous in creating more connected and pleasant environment for us. So
That's great.
all right, well, thank you, Orlando, for that. So we'll move on then to E7 grants. First and foremost, we have item A, approval of the federal fiscal year 2024. We can't do that.
No,
Okay.
people need to be rolled over.
That we can
Yes,
roll that.
sorry.
Yep.
Still don't have certs and assurances.
So we anticipate having certs and assurances for this meeting, but they have not released those yet. So we're gonna hold that at the next meeting. hopefully.
No, we gotta get the federal government to do their thing first.
Oh, yeah, they got a lot going on there.
Yeah, they're kind of busy.
Strike that. That'll move us on to item B, which is associated with certs and assurances, so that item gets rolled over as well, right?
Yep,
That takes us to item C,
yes.
review and approval of the RMT capital plan, proposed federal 5307, 5310 grant program of projects. So something that we haven't necessarily done in the past, but it directly is connected to budget submittal. So we'd like to go this in moving forward, which is outline our federal programs, which then is something that we've always done in relation to issuing a program of projects and so forth, which is a required element of spending the money. So this just gives an opportunity to outline a capital plan of the next 3 years that involves our 5307 formula funds and any 5310 urbanized area formula funds that are apportioned to the district. So Paul and I put together and the rest of staff developed this program of projects for fiscal years 25, 26, 27, or identify sources. So priority, safety, security, safety, repair, and operation support projects. So as outlined in the memo, first we've got a proposal to obligate 307 apportionments of $2,980,027 from fiscal year 29 and $3,290,380. Was that
2019.
2019? Yeah, I'm sorry. And $3,290,386 from fiscal year 20. For a total of $6,270,413 allocated to the following projects in fiscal years 25, 26, and 27. So first, we would utilize $5,108,413 of 5307 funds match to the DOE operating funds in our 25 budget, 26 budget, and 27 budget. Secondly, the funds would be allocated to the eligible operating expenses areas, as well as ADA security and preventive maintenance, which would typically allocated a portion of those funds to. They're defined as certain, we have to fund certain percentages in each one of those areas. So we plan to do at least the minimum, in most cases more than that, those areas. Secondly, item B, then we propose to utilize $1,090,000 of the 5307s for capital procurements for the following items. First, $90,000 for non-revenue support vehicles to fund a operations supervisor vehicle that has wheelchair accessibility so that we can respond to incidents and then have the option of transporting individuals who need it necessary. $700,000 for communication and security equipment. So that's two projects. One is allocated to replace RMT's telephone system. As we talked about that we have telephone services lined up, and this is the funding source that we identified to fund the replacement of our current phone system. The second portion of that is for replacement of our Eastside Center, Eastside Transfer Center security camera system. Currently, we have a system that is 15 years old.
That's old as Bill.
At least 20 years old.
Mhm.
Wow, 15 years now.
Yeah,
Cameras back then?
yeah.
They do, but you know, it's one of those things where it's rather, we're in 10th generation security
Yeah.
camera system. So we're looking at upgrading that, something commensurable with what we have downtown.
Mhm.
An opportunity to upgrade that is an important piece of our whole safety and security. So Further, we've got $140,000 allocated for maintenance shop equipment. We've got a number of small items that we have that need to be replaced, including some mobile waste, floor scrubber to clean up the floors downstairs, little sand and things of that nature. And our other ones on its last legs that we're currently using, as well as the Freon cleaner, and replacement items and addition of some hoists. And the last item that was 160,000 miscellaneous equipment allocated to replace a number of administrative operations support items, including copiers, printers, computer servers, and furniture. So that also then helps support our transition to our facility expansion in some of those areas. That facility where we're going to need support equipment. So that's where all the resources go. That's how we divvied up those two 5307 fund funding sources. They're all eligible capital and operating expenses for those, but that's over the next 3 years. Secondly, then we also proposed to apply for $600,000 to replace 5 paratransit and main response vehicles from the urbanized area portion of 5310 funds. As you may recall, RLPC does a call for projects on a yearly basis, and out of the current apportionment, there's 800,000 or so that 5310 funds that are apportioned to our area. We propose to apply for 600,000 of those to replace 5 of our vehicles that will exceed their useful life that will need to be replaced. So that's part of our overall vehicle replacement strategy. Note it's on here that the capital projects will be scored by TDCs to accommodate the local, the non-federal share. So, no additional revenues needed for that. So that's the outline of the capital plan for those sources. Just to walk you through what happens next, subject to the board's approval of this, we'll publish this year's program of projects summarized above, provides public notice to offer opportunity to request a public hearing. Then we'll develop a POP as required in order to utilize these funds that are apportioned to us annually. Once the POP procedures and the public comment period are completed, the projects will be placed in the TIP for those that are not already in there, and entered into a grant application amendment in the FTA system. The proposed grant resolution will then be submitted to the board for approval. So we actually go ahead and move forward with applying for that. But this sets that path forward so that we can issue the program of projects. We've got a scope of projects that's out there for us reviewed. And this also helps then support the local share of our FY25 operating budget with federal commitment that's outlined in the list. So, any questions?
So I missed, oh,
No, I was just gonna say that's a lot to try and.
Well, and I want to say is most of this stuff, all of this stuff happens every year.
Yeah.
You usually receive it when we actually put it in the grant. So you're seeing it like if you're a train, like one of the last cars, almost a caboose. And now we put you on the engine part of it. So, hey, so it's basically you're seeing our, well, on the operating side, Ron takes it to the board, right? And then we do the 30-day notice, and then it actually gets put into the grant. And now it's with the capital, we're actually doing the same thing. So you basically see it first, and then the POP gets published for the 30 days. And then we also make sure it's in the TIP. I can do the TDC letters, I can enter it in TRAM. So, and then you'll eventually see it again to actually approve the grant. So, but you really lose your position on seeing our projects.
Yes.
see, this is dangerous to put me on the engine.
Yeah.
So this puts it as a plan,
The
which
plan.
is submitted for your approval, of which then the individual grants that are submitted
Right,
are approved through resolution.
So my question is, I think you answered it with the 160. I missed the presentation from Larson and Darby on our F&E budget, furniture and equipment for the expansion. So my question is, do we have enough to cover?
We also have that as a line item in that budget.
Okay.
Mhm.
So a lot of this, we mentioned furniture because there may be some items there, as copies, printers, computer servers, that's not really the bulk of the existing resources that we have that need to be place due to age and condition.
And one
So
thing that's
yes.
not,
Go
one
ahead.
thing that's not in here is the discretionary, because we're talking about going out for the bus and bus facilities, I think, Mike mentioned, to complete the restoration of this building. So that is not part of the formula funding, that's actually discretionary funds, and we normally bring that to you before why we're applying for it, before we even get the funds, so. But this is more for our formula funds that we get. So, and again, it's never come this way. This process has always happened. It's just you usually see it down towards the end and not at the front.
Yeah. JP, is everyone okay with the schedule? You're on the clock now, guys.
And actually, we have a tip meeting this week as well, so there you go.
Well. So I'll move that we approve the RMTD capital plan, proposed federal F307, F 5307, 5310 improvement projects.
I will second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you for that. I know it's a little different, but I thought, you know, this is our efforts to be a little bit more on the front end of this, and that becomes an annual piece that we continue to update that grant capital plan and then start that process and finish the resolution. Okay. All right, moving on then, safety training report, to review and. With that, then we will move on to other business. First and foremost, the annual EO summary report as of December 31st, 2023. Susan.
I just broke it down by orders from last year. We don't have a lot of fluctuation in the different breakdowns. I think we picked up a few more women. Although we were 155 employees at the end of the first quarter last year, and we were at 170 by the end of the fourth quarter. So it looks like we're finally gaining some footing and having people stick around. And we did add the category of Pacific Islander. So we did hire one person, so it's kind of really changes the whole outlook of this. But otherwise, the annual, I was responsible for our annual filing to the EEO for the first time last year, which I did, and just keep moving forward.
This
Looks
was
good.
submitted as an annual report.
Thank you.
If I get my act together, I will provide this to you quarterly. It's my goal. If not quarterly, semi-annually.
Then it's true. I need,
Yeah.
do we need a motion to?
I don't think so.
That is, we submitted to the board. Yes. But we will have, we have, one of our federal requirements is to submit an EO, plan of which, is due this year, and we should have that to the board here, here in the next month or two.
Once
based
we
on
get
time.
that
Yeah. So that's.
ironed
that's
out.
Every 2 year updated. So, expect that next. All right, so with that, then we'll move on to the next item. Item B, approval of the updated RMC Board of Trustee bylaws. So included in your pack is a memo from our attorney with Ms. McCarthy, Tim Rollins, outlining the associated changes. As I mentioned, we had not reviewed these bylaws in quite some time. By bylaws, we submitted it to the board for review within 2 days prior to the board meeting, which is one of the requirements is to with that timeline, but because of the fact these are changes, there's not a lot to discuss here, but Tim's outlined what those items were. Obviously eliminating particular pronouns, deleted conflict of interest policy, because of how it's outlined in the other areas. The items, which is item 2, item 3 was delete article 7 about the corporate seal, something that's kind of an over antiquated thing that's not really applicable now, and so we've removed that. And then revising Article 10 to update and clarify indemnification language, which there was some old language in there that needed to be addressed. As noted, this final matter, these bylaws govern how we want the board to operate, subject to applicable statutes, so whether there's anything about the current bylaws that you'd like to change. The one possible area is raising the issue of the required minimum notice given to trustees of various actions, whether that is calling for a special meeting, amending bylaws, or taking any sort of specific actions about which you feel you would like specific minimum periods of notice. Again, given the size of the board, that may not be applicable or necessary from a practical perspective. So, based on that, read our bylaws and give any questions or concerns, by all means.
I thought Tim did a thorough job.
So,
Entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the updated RMTD Board of Trustee bylaws.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All's in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the final item that we have on the agenda today is approval of an ERP consulting services, IGA. In your packet was a memo summarizing what we're proposing along with the active IGA. In short, if you recall last spring, we proceeded with the conversion of the Avail Enterprise Resource Planning System for financial maintenance management. We're starting that process right now in the upgrade of that. Obviously, at the time we're kind of forced because of the fact that they're no longer supporting the current product as of December, and we decided to move because of continuity of operations and a variety of reasons. In the meantime, we've been talking with various peers across the state who were in the same boat as we were about how they were proceeding and we should proceed, how this works for everybody. Because originally the software was all procured by the state as part of the joint project way back when originally. We joined it later. So kind of following that, everyone's in the same boat, using the same software. Some agencies decided to do what we're doing. One agency, Shannon Banner, decided they wanted to go a different route and not join in, but try to find a different software. And so the question became, how do we do that, right? Where's the expertise to do that? What do we even need and what's out there, right? How does the back end system work? How do things integrate? We need to know what we don't know about these systems and find a solution that works in the future. And many of us, peer agencies, agree with that. So they did some research on this, identified some groups that could help with kind of outlining the kind of needs assessment and helping formulate what a specification would look like for what it is that we would need or they would need. And then also as part of that, provide some bandwidth to help with project management and development of RFPs and project management to implement. So they moved forward with this, approved this, and intended to go out on this on their own, but then came back to the group and said, who wants to join us in this effort? This would be advantageous to you. We could share the costs. So Connect Transit raised their hand, Rock Island Moline raised their hand, and we raised our hand saying we would be interested in potentially participating with you if you outline the costs in this effort. I should note that as included in the IGA, it's a multi-step process. There's a number of tasks outlined, the cost associated with each process. If we were to go through all of the tasks, which there's 9 outlined, the total cost for us would be divided by 4, a total of $57,500 in total over the next 18 months. If we chose not to go through all those processes, so in other words, we get to the end of the development of an RFP and have the whole specification written, say, we're not ready to move forward with this yet, and we don't want to join in that process, we end up having a viable RFP that we can leverage and utilize when we decide to move forward on our own. So, whether we end at task, 5 or we continue through the end of the task, we would pay only through 5, or pay all the way through 9, depending on what process we want to go through and share the cost. But what this IGA does, it secures our spot, allows us to participate and get the value added of that entire project, and allows us then to have an end product that can support us in our business operations moving forward. So staff recommends participating and joining the the IGA at a not to exceed amount of $57,500 for participating in this project in the next 16 months, of which we budgeted for some of this within the FY25 budget. So that answering questions you may have.
Well, sounds like good consortium of groups that bring together.
Well, and then as we've done in our recent project with Clever and going into a project like that with another entity, with a lack of bench, the whole transition of staff, being able to rely on other entities with similar software who are facing the same issues is extremely helpful in supporting your ongoing operation, your business operation. So this is kind of along those same themes of that. And this should help us, like I said, find out what we don't know and develop, identify products that are out there in the space, because right now there's no product in the trans industry that fits for a small to medium-sized operation that does all the things that the current product attempts to do that we have now, right? And I say attempts to do because we are yet to see what its full capability is, because we have not fully transitioned to it yet. And so to protect ourselves in the event that it doesn't do everything it's supposed to do, we can just fall back on and then move to pivot. Ron, anything to add on that?
No, I think you did a good job on that.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.
GFOA organization is,
Yeah,
everybody's in agreement with that?
yeah. They've, like I said, they've already procured the services with Champion Urbana has. They've taken the lead on this entire project. So they're, as was outlined in here, the Government Finance Officers Association. This is what they do. They have a research and consulting center that's nationally recognized that supports these efforts in the public sector space. So it's a good group that supports our area.
Okay. I could add that the current system of bail, like it says, we don't know where it's gonna end up, which we don't, because we just, if the board remembers, we had a conversion cost to go over to their new system that won't be in-house anymore. It'll be on a network, web-based.
Cloud services.
Yeah, we don't know what that end product's gonna be. They've been promising what that end promise, what that end product would be for probably about 3 years, and we haven't gotten there yet. But one thing I will also put out there is we are going to, like I said, a cloud base, so it's not on, we don't house it. Last fiscal year, we budgeted probably $20,000 for maintenance and support service, which they really don't give us. I checked with TAC and and other people, they really don't give us a lot of support, but support is going up to $60,000. So it's jumped up, it's 3 times as much, so there's a concern there, $60,000, but.
So certainly there's not supporting the product. So
Yeah,
now as
right.
we transition to a new product, then we'll have those.
So we paid $39,000 to convert over, and we got a $60,000 annual support service for that.
So again, we're hopeful that when we transition over to their Avail system, that we will get more support because we will be on their product
And
right now.
you two youngsters weren't around before the Avail product. But prior to that, we had 2 systems that didn't talk to each other. And it was a pain in the ass, okay? But, whoops, we're on Zoom. It was a pain in the butt, but,
And the
But,
Move that we.
yeah, the new product did do that for us.
Right.
And whatever we go forward to, they're not gonna, it's gonna be two different products. If we don't stay with the
Any
family.
other questions, maybe answered, otherwise.
I'm not.
consideration.
I'll move that we approve the intergovernmental agreement for enterprise resource planning consulting services.
All second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Gentlemen, appreciate it.
Mhm.
With that, we're at the end of the.
Next meeting, Friday, March 22nd.
Should be on our calendar. Yes, you are out. But I got you and Pastor John.
It is on my calendar.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
is good.
I will move.
They lose.
I will second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Thank you.